Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm Carol Jordão. I'm a researcher at ASU and the director of the Arizona Water4A Network. We're very happy to kick out this webinar series that is going to be a monthly series with presentations from partners of this network that brings together academics, community partners to promote collaboration and amplify stakeholder voices of people who are working to promote water security in Arizona. And yeah, and I'm very, very happy to have Nieves and Chris presenting this first one for with the amazing work that Water for People does, and which is a key partner for our network. So I'll leave with you guys now.
Thank you, Gato, for the introduction. So this is our first webinar in our Arizona Water for All monthly webinar series. And the intention behind hosting these webinars is to allow us to get to know a little bit more about what we're all doing in the network, to find potential points of collaboration, support, and just get to know each other. So our first iteration will be with Water for People, which I'm very excited about to be presenting on with my colleague Chris. We'll go through our presentation, and we're hoping that at the end we can have an open Q&A, discuss, and network. Hopefully very casual, and that we all get to know each other a little better. So with that, I will share my screen, and we can go ahead and get started to ensure we have enough time at the end for Q&A and networking and all that. So one second as I share my screen.
All right. Well, thank you all for being here and inviting us to talk. My name is Chris Freiumund. I'm the lead of Water for People's U.S. country program, and I'm excited to, be talking a little bit more about our program. I'll let Nieves introduce themselves as well before we get started, and then we can actually talk a little bit more about who we are and what we do.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nieves Vazquez. I'm the Arizona WASH Program Specialist at Water for People's U.S. Country Program. I am based out of Tucson, Arizona, and very excited to teach you more about what I get to do here in Arizona as part of Water for People.
All right. So, for those of you that are not familiar with Water for People, we're a global WASH organization. So, we currently work in 9 countries outside of the US, and the US as well. And so, those 9 countries are 4 in Latin America, 4 in Africa, and in India. And the US is our most recent, newest country program within Water for People's kind of group of programs. And so it's pretty new. We're about 2.5 to 3 years old. Um, and we took some of the slides we'll kind of start with are really more about how did we translate lessons learned from that global experience and bring that to the US, and how are we implementing that a little bit here in our current work. So our kind of everything we do stems around this belief that access to WASH services really impacts life in so many different ways, whether that's people's health, education, livelihoods, and is really a central focus point for those connections to people's well-being and community well-being. And so that's kind of the through line that we see in all of our country programs and in all of the different things that we do here in the US as well. And then the other big lesson learned that we took from a lot of our other country programs is that Water for People's approach is a systems strengthening approach, is what we like to call it, which is really that we take and think through all of the various different pieces in the enabling environment for WASH access to be sustainable in the long run. And so our program is not, or at least our US program is not infrastructure heavy or infrastructure focused. We really think about kind of all the other different pieces that go into supporting that infrastructure to be long lasting. And that includes everything from regulation, policy and advocacy work, kind of planning, coordinating, community leadership, and all these different pieces that go into it. And so this system strengthening approach is what we really implement at all the various different scales that we work, whether that's nationally with other partners, all the way down to our local work that we're doing in partnership with Arizona Waterfront. And I'm sure all of you, if not many, are very familiar with some of these numbers, but I also just wanted to set the stage a little bit for why our program exists and what we really care about and what we're trying to address. And when we were starting this program, we were really thinking through, where can we add our voice? Where can we support people? Where can we support others in this sector? And so it just kind of, this number keeps popping up that there's at least 2.2 million people in the US that lack access to plumbing and water in their home. And I say at least because there is a large data gap at a federal level to really have that securely known. But it is kind of a starting point for what we call the access gap. And everything that we do at Water for People really focuses on different strategies to attempt to close the access gap. And there's a lot of reasons for this. The number one indicator, though, and the number one thing is gross inequality and structural racism. This is very clear in the policies that have been in place, in the, who's had access, who hasn't, who's historically been excluded. And that includes, for example, indigenous nations or indigenous households are 19 times more likely to lack access than white households. And Latin American or Latino or African American households are about twice as likely. Some of the other kind of key root causes include lack of kind of other infrastructure pieces beyond just wash infrastructure, but supportive infrastructure, lack of actionable data at a federal level over recent decades. There has been less and less national level data around access issues, such as the Census Bureau no longer asks if you have access to water in your home. The American Community Survey, that is often one of the things used, similarly does not ask about toilets or those kinds of things. And of course, aging infrastructure and impacts of climate change and those kinds of things. Some other just not fun access gap statistics beyond the two I already said. Beyond those 2.2 million people, there's about 44 million people that are considered water insecure in the US. And so that is generally those who have been served water through a system that has had a recent health-based Safe Drinking Water Act violation. So systems that are out of compliance. So even if they have water, it might not be secure, healthy in the long term. So that means about 12% of the US population, by the UN's definition, is water insecure. And as I mentioned, federal data doesn't cover it very well. And due to kind of funding cuts over recent decades, but especially in this most recent year, there are kind of less and less funding opportunities to help address those gaps as well at a federal level. Okay. And then, of course, when we were thinking about creating this program, we wondered, where is this really taking place and where can we really support those that are already in this sector and already working to address these issues? And so this is adapted from our colleagues at Dig Deep and the US Water Alliance. And it really shows what we think of as the hot spots of the access gap. This map does not mean that there aren't people facing access issues in all 50 states and all the territories, and because there are, but these are the places that it is most acutely felt. And so when we kind of began this program, we started working at a national scale, which I'll talk about in a minute. And then we also really zoomed in on the Southwest, where you see some of the bigger access gap hotspots, specifically in Arizona. All right. So as I said, we started with these kind of two different scales. The first of which is national, and that is through a collective of organizations called the Vessel Collective that Water for People and our team co-founded with Dig Deep 2 years ago. And this is an attempt to bring partners together, communities together, create a coalition, and really be able to have an really collective action, collective voice ability to advocate and push things at a national scale. With this group, we're creating a national roadmap to close the gap. We've hosted convenings. We've started to really try to bring the sector together as a complete sector to understand challenges and opportunities and ways to work together. And this whole approach is through partnership, coalition building kind of approach. And so that's the same style approach that we kind of funnel down to our local work as well, where we try to do everything through this mix of system strengthening, sector strengthening, and kind of coalition support. And so that now in our Arizona work, you'll see once Nieves gets to it in a bit, that same type of approach with Arizona Water for All and our local partners. This is the original steering committee of the Vessel Collective, the organizations that are listed there. And we co-founded this with Dig Deep and are currently steering committee members and have been working together with this whole team for the last couple of years on various national initiatives, everything from policy advocacy efforts to conferences and things like that. The Vessel's current kind of trajectory and focus area is to create a national roadmap to close the access gap, which kind of started with a sector-wide assessment, a lot of feedback from all the steering committee members, a lot of feedback from community members, and things like that. And this theory of change really stems from that roadmap. And that's why it's currently in draft form. It will hopefully be coming out in the next couple of months, and I'm happy to share it with you all once it does. And these three key things are things that we kind of all align around and really want to push in different ways to close the gap. And so it's visibility of the issue, as it really is an issue that's often unseen throughout kind of the US. And so shared messaging, shared advocacy, improved data collection, those kinds of things. Really pushing for government commitment, whether that's more dedicated funding, state funding, more things like the human right to water legislation, such as what California has, supporting tribal water settlements, really that government piece, and then growing capacity as the water workforce is definitely in need of more capacity and creating more engagement tools for local actors to be able to advocate for themselves, as well as be able to work with local governments. So as I said, we're working on a roadmap. This has been something we've been working on for about the last year and has multiple iterations. And we're currently in the kind of refine the roadmap piece right before it gets shared to everyone. But it's gone through focus groups and surveys and all sorts of different feedback mechanisms. And we're hoping to be able to share this out and present it starting in around May when we host our next big conference, and then be able to all align around some of those pillars and strategies and be able to demonstrate kind of collective strengthening and collective growth towards changing some of those things within those three major pillars. Another thing that we are doing, and this is kind of that funnel approach again, is we have been co-leading and co-facilitating regional working groups through this Vessel Collective. And so this is kind of a map of our current working group structure. And these groups stemmed from a conference that we held last year. And the idea is to be able to, we're going to host another big virtual workshop next week, which I'm happy to, after this presentation, throw in the chat if anyone wants to participate, to bring people together within these various regions, think through how within those regions, what challenges are they facing, what are things that they can work on together, what are opportunities, and then how can they also interact with this roadmap, and how can the roadmap support them in their own work towards addressing access gaps. And then finally, we are working on kind of a national sector gathering, which last year we held the first inaugural National WASH convening, which had over 300 participants, similarly used those regional kind of focus breakout throughout the whole program. And then on the third day, we all went, or most of us went, to advocate, and we visited every Senate office and really pushed for the 2024 WASH Data Collection Act, which unfortunately was was relatively close to the elections, and so nothing got pushed through at that point. But it really did bring us all together to really think through this issue together and push things as a whole sector, which was really important for us as a way to kind of bring people from all these different regions and experiences to think through something that would support all of us throughout the sector. So we're hosting another convening in May in DC. This will similarly be a 3-day event where 2 days are workshops, much of which focused around those regional pieces and the roadmap. And then the third day will be an advocacy component. The advocacy component is yet to be really decided on what we're gonna come together on. It will likely be something from the roadmap, but it's still kind of dependent as we're thinking about appropriations and those kinds of things that the government is currently focusing on. Yeah, and so that's all our national level work, very high level, very rapid, kind of sprint through it all. So if anyone has questions at the end, I'm happy to answer more about Vessel, about our national scale work, all those different things. And I'll happily now pass the ball to Nieves to talk more about our work with Arizona Water for All and our work in Arizona itself.
Thank you, Chris. So as Chris was mentioning on our scaling approach within Water for People, creating the U.S. Country Program, identifying hotspots, and really working towards system strengthening approaches, especially through partnerships and coalition building, those same initiatives were implemented for our Arizona WASH program. And it's our first of hopefully many iterations of us focusing on local regional work to bridge the water access and water insecurity gaps. We plan and we are doing that through coalition building, as well as community engagement and leadership strengthening. As you can see, this is a very collective effort as part of the Arizona Water for All network. We've been able to delve into what does that local and statewide impact can really look like. And as Gato mentioned earlier, before we got started, the Arizona Water for All Coalition or network began as a pillar of the Water Innovation Initiative at Arizona State University. And it is a very strong partner in our efforts to do that coalition building, especially when it combines that physical and social infrastructure to address water insecurity. And as the network continues to grow and we're seeing the iterations of it, this is a great example of us strengthening the coalition of people wanting to address the water insecurity gap in Arizona. So our effort is to connect not just Arizona, but the borderlands and other southwestern communities, especially with connecting that community with decision makers and researchers. We believe that can really strengthen the autonomy in the advocacy efforts for place-based needs for communities. As each community will face a specific water challenge, specific water solutions will be needed. And so by us engaging in the network, we help to strengthen these communities to solve those problems for themselves as well. So through network building, we also can create a shared identity to push forward our advocacy efforts. Together with partnerships, we can continue that social and physical infrastructure partnership that doesn't always get to connect. In this picture here, it is one of the iterations of bringing community together at the Community Water Forum in Nogales, Arizona. That happened in 2024 with Border Community Alliance and the Arizona Water for All Network and Water for People, where we convened NGOs, government officials, academics, and residents of Southern Arizona and Northern Sonora, Mexico, so ambos Nogales, to really focus on strengthening relationships and coming together for place-based solutions when facing these very unique water challenges on the borderland. So that is convening. That is a great example of how the network has been able to address the gaps in reaching each other to bridge those gaps in water insecurity. When it comes to the community engagement piece that the Arizona Water for All Network and Water for People get to collaborate on, we've been able to really help build what the network can feel and look like. You might have received some newsletters, for example, showcasing not just water stories and projects, but ways to collaborate, ways to show up with community, resources, funding, publications, and really promoting those across Arizona, regardless of which sector of water they're in. To help connect everyone across stakeholders and across sectors. This monthly webinar series we're hoping is also a really great way to engage community across the sector, helping with that social and physical infrastructure piece. We also get to host community workshops, and there's also a touring museum exhibit, for example, that is currently in Phoenix, but will soon go to Tucson, Arizona, as well as Flagstaff. So those are ways that we're getting to connect with non-traditional modes of bridging the water access gap, which is interactive exhibits for community members to come and share their water story, but also hear from other perspectives. And again, going back to that shared identity piece, we think is very vital for us to come together for addressing water and security needs, especially since we're all coming from different sectors. It can really strengthen our capacity to work together and have a stronger case to bridge that access gap. One of my favorite ways that we've been able to implement a sort of community workshop and community gathering with real results is the Water Leadership Institute. This is a very collaborative initiative and project through partners such as Environmental Defense Fund here in Southern Arizona with Reconciliación en el Río Santa Cruz, the Arizona Water for All Network, and Water for People. Um, the Water Leadership Institute, most first and foremost, is for frontline community members facing barriers who are underrepresented in water decision making, for them to come together and explore water challenges in their communities and allow them the space and tools to reimagine what collaborative solutions can look like. Um, we really focus on how a series of workshops can build on top of each other, not just by having guest speakers come in and share about their background, but allowing them to also experience real world problem solving with these guest speakers, getting to see diverse perspectives and disciplines for addressing the water access gap. And that allows for diverse backgrounds and leadership styles, which we really think is a holistic way to approach the water insecurity gaps that we're seeing across Arizona. And so our key themes not just focus on water access and quality, but really about those community-based solutions and thinking outside of the box and being imaginative of what these solutions can look like. And the most recent iteration focused on the question of what is my relationship to water? For a lot of our participants, this was the first time they were thinking about water in that way. So it was very important for us to help guide them in that. And we did that through a historical context pillar, WASH pathways, which are water access, sanitation, and hygiene, transboundary resilience, especially with the region that we were working in, as well as leadership and what these different definitions of leadership can look like. In Southern Arizona, we wrapped up our most recent cohort in December. It spanned from September to December across 5 sessions. Each gathering was building on the next, but as you can see, they were at different locations across the Santa Cruz River. And this was a fully bilingual program, which allowed for participants, regardless of their language or preferred language, to be able to show up holistically so we can really get to that community place-based problem solving that can sometimes be a barrier for coming together to address these water challenges. Not only were participants hearing from speakers, but they were also gaining tools and experiences such as learning with Arizona Department of Environmental Quality how to identify and safely clean up trash, how to test for turbidity, how to get involved with citizen science for them to be leaders right now as soon as they left our session in their communities to be those water leaders. Not only were they listening to local government officials and researchers and academics, they were also listening from community members and cultural members, people who have lived in the area for generations, getting to hear the historical span of how water insecurity has changed or how approaches have needed to be adapted. As you can see, we had speakers from the Patagonia Area Resource Alliance, all the way from hearing from Dr. Celso Villegas from the Thanatam Nation on his attempt to intersect water policy and law with also cultural knowledge and the importance of having both in addressing water insecurity. So the Water Leadership Institute has been a very phenomenal way of engaging that community aspect to face our water challenges here. Supporting alumni has been a really great way to see the continuation of impact, especially through the Arizona Water for All Network and Water for People and our other partners. These are just some really great ways that we've seen participants grow since joining the Water Leadership Institute. And at the end of my presentation, I'll go ahead and share a digital zine, for example, that participants created as a reflection to their water leadership journey. Um, we are really focused on how we can further support alumni beyond the Water Leadership Institute. We have some ideas in mind for April, but something that is really wanted is technical training support. So, open to ideas or points of collaboration for how alumni can continue to step into their water leadership role. It's been really great to see them grow and continue to be involved in their communities. These are just some examples of how alumni have found opportunities to stay involved even after WLI. For example, one of the co-founders of the Colorado River Indigenous Youth Advisory Council, Tylee Nez, she was a participant in 2024, and being part of WLI inspired her to create more spaces. And so these are just some examples of the impact of like building that water leadership sector and hoping to see the next generation of water leaders out in the world. Very briefly, I'll touch on why we think this is so important. We want other people to experience this too. And so, in progress right now, Water for People, the Arizona Water for All Network, and Environmental Defense Fund are working on a process guide. This is to help other communities and other folks adapt the Water Leadership Institute for their communities. So, we're framing it as a type of toolkit where we can offer certain tools, yet there's room for folks to add their own because every place will be unique. It will require a unique set of tools, but something that remains consistent, of course, is that water leadership piece, but also staying true to the location you're in and focusing on place-based knowledge to ensure that the workshops are relevant and actually impactful. Um, we're continuing to build trust through our Water for People programming too. We're very excited to be selected to be a host site for the Institute for Tribal Environmental Professionals summer internship. And that's a really great way that we're seeing our impact here in Arizona is that young students or early career professionals want to learn more about what does bridging the water access gap through a wash lens can look like. And that's been really exciting, as well as being invited to conversations along the Colorado River Sustainability Campaign on how to support tribes on the conversation of water. And of course, co-leading Vessel's regional working group. So that's been a really great honor of how we're able to not only build our network, but also expand our trust. And being part of the Arizona Waterfront Network has been a great asset in that trust and support building that we're doing. I'll pass it on to Chris if you want to talk us through our growth.
Yeah, thank you. So as we think through these various scales that we work in and how we can grow kind of this localized approach and regional approach, we're very much in the still imagining things phase and the dreaming up what this could look like. And but it really continues to be through building partnerships, supporting more communities, kind of this collaborative approach. And there's different ways we could see that going. So one is, of course, continuing this vessel regional dialogue approach. We co-lead that working group as well as co-facilitate the Southwest discussions. And so if anyone is interested in participating in those, please let me know. And we co-lead that with the Tribal Clean Water Initiative, which is a really great partnership. And then also beyond that, through the Colorado River Basin discussions is one way we see that this could potentially scale and grow and continue to build more partnerships. Other ways that we thought about kind of scaling this, whether that's with the process guide or different partnerships, is through this kind of borderland colonias connection. As you can see in that bottom right map, there's colonias all the way through California, through Texas, and different ways that we could support communities facing similar challenges throughout all those areas. And so, yeah, as we build trust with partners, with Indigenous partners, with local communities, we hope to be able to grow all of these different scales. And very much depends on capacity and depends on the partnerships and trust that we build. But our aim is to eventually be able to support communities in all of those hotspots that I mentioned in that original map. And we continue to really focus on Arizona as well as different ways we can scale this out. And so those are the directions this is going. Those are the directions that we're still a very new program and a very new kind of way of doing this. But we're seeing a lot of success and seeing a lot of really wonderful partnerships, both with groups like Arizona Water for All and beyond. And so, yeah, grateful to be here and to answer any questions about our current work or the way we see things going in the future. But that's more or less how we see some of this local work growing over time.
Yes, thank you, Chris. And yes, I wanted to ensure there was enough time for conversation and questions, and happy to expand on any of the slides as well. But thank you all for listening, and let us know if you have any questions.